The cargo freighter Dust Runner shuddered as it dropped out of hyperspace, and Owen Reeves felt his stomach lurch the way it always did during the transition. Through the viewport, Crossroads Station appeared like a giant spinning wheel against the darkness, its lights twinkling across dozens of docking arms. Owen had seen pictures of the place, but nothing prepared him for the sheer size of it. This was where the galaxy did business, where hundreds of species met to trade, negotiate, and exchange information. And he was about to become the first human to walk through those doors. Ash lifted his head from where he'd been resting near Owen's feet. The wolf's ears swiveled forward, picking up the change in the ship's engine sounds, his amber eyes fixed on Owen with that particular look that always seemed to ask if everything was all right. "We're fine, boy," Owen said, reaching down to scratch behind Ash's ears. "Just another port. Nothing we haven't handled before." That was not entirely true. Every other port had been small outposts in unclaimed space places where asking too many questions was considered rude. Crossroads Station was different. This was civilization, or at least what passed for it in this part of the galaxy. Owen had spent 3 months traveling from Earth's outer colonies to get here. Carrying a hold full of salvaged materials and a head full of hopes that someone would actually want to trade with an unknown species, the docking procedures took longer than Owen expected. The station's traffic control system kept asking for identification codes he did not have and registration numbers that did not exist in their databases. Finally, a live operator came on the line and Owen could hear the confusion in their translated voice when he explained he was human from Earth making first contact. There was a long pause. Then the operator assigned him a visitor's dock on one of the outer arms and told him to report to customs immediately upon arrival. Owen guided the Dust Runner into the assigned dock with practiced ease. The airlock sealed with a hiss and pressure indicators turned green. He stood up, stretching muscles that had been sitting too long, and looked down at Ash. The wolf had risen to all fours, his body tense with anticipation. "Remember what we talked about," Owen said, clipping a lead to Ash's collar. Not that the wolf needed it for control, but other species might feel better seeing what looked like a restraint. "Stay close, stay calm, and if anyone gives us trouble, we walk away. No teeth, unless I say so." Ash's tail swished once in acknowledgement. The moment Owen stepped through the airlock into Crossroads Station proper, he knew they were being watched. The corridor opened into a large customs area, and at least 20 different beings stopped what they were doing to stare. Owen had studied xenobiology files during the journey, but seeing aliens in person was completely different. Most of them towered over him. A reptilian creature near the customs desk stood at least 8 foot tall, its scales catching the light like polished stones. A group of insectoid beings clustered near a vending station, their multiple eyes all turning toward him in unison. Owen walked toward the customs desk, keeping his pace steady and confident. Ash moved beside him like a gray shadow, his paws silent on the metal floor. The conversations around them had gone quiet, replaced by whispers in dozens of languages that the station's translation system rendered as overlapping murmurs. The customs officer was one of the reptilian beings with a badge on his chest that read Growl Security Chief in the common script. His eyes, which were golden with vertical slits for pupils, narrowed as Owen approached. "You are the human," Growl said. It was not a question. "Owen Reeves." Owen replied, extending his hand before remembering that might not be a universal gesture. He lowered it. "From Earth, I sent ahead my cargo manifest and requested trading permissions." Growl looked down at Owen and something like amusement flickered across his scaled face. "You are small. The data file said humans averaged 1.7 m, but I thought that was an error." "It's accurate," Owen said evenly. "Is there a problem?" "No problem." Growl tapped something on his terminal. "Just surprising. Most species that survive to space travel are larger, more robust." His eyes shifted to Ash. "What is that?" "His name is Ash. He's a wolf from Earth." "A pet?" Owen felt Ash tense slightly beside him. "A companion. He travels with me. Growl leaned over the desk, studying Ash with more interest now. It looks soft, weak. What purpose does it serve? Before Owen could answer, a small four-armed creature skewered up to the desk. She barely reached Owen's chest with bright blue skin and large curious eyes. A human, really? Let me see. She circled around Owen and Ash, chittering excitedly. Oh, they are small. And look at the creature. It has fur. Can I touch it? Pix, get back to your stall. Growl growled. This is customs processing, but nobody has ever seen a human before. This is exciting. Pix reached toward Ash, her small hand extended. Ash pulled back slightly, moving closer to Owen's leg. A low rumble started in his chest, barely audible, but definitely present. Pix froze. Did it just growl at me? He's not used to being touched by strangers, Owen explained. He's friendly, but he needs space. Growl made a dismissive sound. It growls. That is supposed to frighten someone. Tell me, human, what exactly do you think you can trade here? You arrive in a ship that looks ready to fall apart. You are half the size of most species here, and you bring a fuzzy animal that makes noise when frightened. What do you have that the galaxy needs? Owen met Growl's eyes steadily. He had faced down bears in the Montana wilderness and survived storms in the North Atlantic. A condescending alien did not scare him. Rare metals from asteroid mining. Salvage from dead ships in unclaimed space and information about Earth if anyone's interested in learning about a new species. Metals we have salvage is cheap. An Earth Growl pulled up something on his screen. Your world is classified as a death world. Extreme hazard rating, high gravity, violent weather, dangerous fauna. The only thing special about your planet is that nothing should be able to live there. He looked back at Owen with something between pity and amusement. Yet here you are, small and soft, with your pet that makes noise. I think perhaps your species got lucky, human. Perhaps you found one safe valley on your terrible world and hid there until you learned to build ships. Around them, other beings had gathered to watch the exchange. Owen heard laughter, saw the way they looked at him and Ash. To them, this was entertainment. The small human and his fuzzy animal pretending to be equals in a galaxy of giants. Owen felt anger rise in his chest but pushed it down. Getting angry would prove nothing. Instead, he simply nodded and said, "Can I get my trading permit or do you need something else?" Growl processed the paperwork with a few more taps on his terminal. You have 3 days. Try not to cause problems, human. This station has rules. Understood. Owen took the permit chip and turned away from the desk. Pick skewered alongside him as he walked toward the commercial district. Don't mind Growl, she said brightly. He's like that with everyone new. Where are you staying? The outer ring has cheap berths. I can show you where to trade your metals. Are you hungry? Do humans eat the same food as other species? Does your fuzzy friend eat? What does he eat? Can he do tricks? The questions came rapid fire and Owen found himself almost smiling despite the reception. At least someone was friendly. We'll figure it out, he told Pix. Thanks for the offer. As they walked through the station's corridors, Owen noticed how beings moved out of their way. Not out of respect or fear, but out of casual disregard. The way someone might step around a child or a small cleaning robot. Nobody saw them as a threat. Nobody saw them as anything important at all. Ash pressed against Owen's leg, and Owen felt the wolf's tension through that contact. Ash had always been good at reading situations, at sensing when danger was near or when someone meant harm. Right now, the wolf was alert, but not aggressive. He understood the same thing Owen did. They were being judged, measured, and found wanting. Owen found a quiet corner near a viewport that looked out at the stars and knelt down beside Ash. He ran his hand through the wolf's thick fur and spoke quietly. I know, boy. They think we're nothing. They think we're weak. He looked into Ash's intelligent, amber eyes. Let them think it. We didn't come here to prove anything. We came to trade and learn. That's enough. Ash's tail wagged once. A simple gesture of trust and understanding. Owen stood up and looked out at Crossroads Station spreading before them. Somewhere in this massive structure, there had to be someone willing to deal fairly with a human. Someone who cared more about the quality of his salvage than the size of his species. He had 3 days to find them, make his trades, refuel the dust runner, and get back to space. 3 days on a station that thought he was a joke. 3 days of being the smallest person in every room. 3 days of keeping Ash calm while aliens pointed and laughed. Owen sighed and adjusted the pack on his shoulder. Come on, Ash. Let's find somewhere to set up and get to work. The wolf followed without hesitation, and together they disappeared into the crowds of Crossroads Station. 2 beings from Earth walking among the stars, underestimated and overlooked, neither of them minded. Being underestimated had advantages. And if there was one thing Owen and Ash had learned on Earth, it was that survivors did not need to be the biggest or the strongest. They just needed to be smart enough to adapt and stubborn enough to never give up. The information broker's shop sat tucked between a fuel supplier and a weapons dealer in one of Crossroads Station's less traveled corridors. Owen had found it by asking around, and after being directed to 3 wrong locations, he finally stood before a door marked with symbols in 6 different languages. All of them translated to the same thing, Willick's Information Services. Inside the shop was dim and cluttered with data screens, all of them showing different streams of information from across the galaxy. Behind a curved desk sat a being that looked like a mantis crossed with a spider with too many legs and eyes that gleamed in the darkness. Willicks clicked his mandibles together as Owen entered. A human, Willicks said, his voice coming through the translation device with a surprised tone. I have been hearing about you. The small one with the furry creature. You are real. Very real, Owen confirmed. Ash stayed close, his eyes scanning the room for threats out of habit. I need information about trading regulations and which merchants might be interested in rare metals. Willicks's many eyes blinked in sequence. Information has a price. I expected that. Owen pulled out a small data chip. Scans of 3 asteroid fields in unclaimed space rich in platinum and iridium. Fair trade. Several of Willicks's limbs reached out to take the chip and slot it into a reader. His eyes unfocused as he reviewed the data, then refocused on Owen with what might have been respect. Fair trade indeed. You know, value. He pulled up several screens. But first, I must ask, your world, Earth. I looked at the public files. Death World Classification, Extreme Hazard. How did your species survive? Owen had been asked some version of this question by every alien he had met so far. Most asked out of mocking curiosity, as if expecting him to admit humans had just gotten lucky. But Willick sounded genuinely interested, like he was trying to solve a puzzle. We adapted, Owen said simply. We learned. We survived. But the file says your world has predators that mass 3 times what you do. Weather systems that can destroy cities, diseases that kill in days, gravity that would break bones of most species I know. Willicks leaned forward. Your oceans alone are classified as death zones, and yet you are here traveling space, seemingly unbothered. Owen thought about how to explain it. He remembered being 12 years old, camping with his father in the Cascade Mountains. A black bear had wandered into their camp at night, drawn by food smells. His father had not panicked, had not run. He had made noise, made himself big, and slowly backed away until the bear lost interest. The lesson had stuck with Owen. Respect the danger, understand it, but do not fear it. On Earth, Owen began, everything is trying to survive. The predators, the prey, the plants, even the weather in a way. Humans survived because we learned to think ahead. We learned to use tools. We learned to work together, and we learned to make friends with some of the things that could kill us. Willix's eyes turned to Ash, who sat patiently beside Owen. The wolf. You said he is a companion, not livestock, not a working animal. Both and neither. Owen said, wolves and humans, we started hunting together about 30,000 years ago, maybe longer. We helped each other survive. They had better senses. We had better planning together. We were stronger than apart. Eventually, we were not just allies. We were family. Family. Willix repeated the word like he was testing its weight. You formed kinship bonds with predators. We formed kinship bonds with lots of species. Dogs, cats, horses, birds, even some reptiles and fish. Humans have this thing where we will bond with almost anything if given enough time. Owen smiled slightly. There are humans on Earth who keep creatures that could kill them as pets just because they find them interesting. Willix made a sound that the translator rendered as thoughtful humming. And this one, this wolf, he is dangerous. Very, Owen said honestly. Ash can run faster than I can. Fight better than I can. And his senses are far superior to mine. In a straight fight with no weapons, he would win. Then why does he obey you? He does not obey me. He trusts me. There is a difference. Owen looked down at Ash, whose ears had perked up at hearing his name. I saved his life when he was young. Injured. I could have left him to die. Instead, I spent weeks nursing him back to health. Since then, we have survived together, hunted together. When I am in danger, he protects me. When he is in danger, I protect him. That is what pack means. Willix was quiet for a long moment. Then he pulled up a different screen. This one showing more detailed Earth data. I accessed the extended files. They cost more, but I wanted to understand. Do you know what we found most disturbing about your world? The predators? Owen guessed. No, the humans. Willix turned the screen toward Owen. You are the apex predator on your world. Not the largest, not the strongest, not the fastest, but the most dangerous. Do you know why the galactic community classifies Earth as extreme hazard? Not because of your bears or your sharks or your weather. Because of you. Because humans took a world that should have killed them and instead dominated it completely. Owen looked at the data on the screen. It showed human population spread, human control of resources, human modification of environments. From space, Earth looked like it belonged to humanity. And in a way, it did. We did what we had to do to survive, Owen said quietly. Most species when they face a death world, they die or they leave, Willix continued. Your species stayed, thrived, and now you travel the stars with a predator as a companion, acting as if this is normal. He clicked his mandibles again. The galaxy is not ready for humans. We have grown soft. We have peace. We have technology. We have forgotten what it means to struggle for survival every day. As if to emphasize the point, the shop door opened and Pix burst in, chattering excitedly. Owen, there you are. I found a merchant who wants to see your metals. He is a Volnath, very rich, and he heard about the human and wants to meet you. She paused, noticing Willix. Oh, sorry. Are you busy? I can wait outside. It is fine, Willix said. We were finished. Owen stood and Ash rose with him. Thank you for the information. Wait. Willix pulled up another screen and transferred data to a chip. Trading contacts. Merchants who value quality over politics. And one more thing, human, be careful. Not everyone will be curious like me or friendly like Pix. Some will see you as a threat. Some will want to test you and some will want to prove you are not as special as the files say. Owen took the chip. I will keep that in mind. Outside the shop, Pix led them through the station at a rapid pace, talking the entire time. The Volnith are crystalline beings, very logical, very precise. They do not care about size or appearance, only about value and quality. Perfect for you. His name is Herson, and he runs one of the biggest trading consortiums on the station. They arrived at a much larger shop in the commercial district. Inside, everything was organized with mathematical precision. Goods were arranged by density and composition. Price tags were calculated to 7 decimal places, and behind a central podium stood Herson, a being made entirely of what looked like living crystal, refracting light into rainbow patterns across the walls. The human, Herson said, his voice like chimes. You have rare metals to sell. Owen pulled out his sample case and laid out the refined materials he had processed from asteroid mining. Platinum, iridium, rubidium, and several other heavy elements. Herson examined each one with instruments that extended from his crystalline body. Purity is exceptional, noted. Processing is crude but effective. Where did you source these asteroid belt in Sector 794? Owen said unclaimed space. I spent 2 months mining and refining. 2 months of work for this quantity. Herson's tone suggested that was either impressive or foolish. Most miners would spend 2 weeks and move on. Most miners have better equipment than I do, Owen admitted. I had to work with what I have. Herson was quiet for a moment, and the crystals that made up his body seemed to dim and brighten as he processed information. I will buy your entire stock, but I have a question first. Why do you travel alone? Most species, especially small ones, travel in groups for safety. You have only your animal. Owen glanced down at Ash. I am not alone. And Ash is not just an animal. Prove it. Owen considered what to demonstrate. He had trained Ash for years, teaching him commands and signals that went far beyond simple tricks. Ash, search. The wolf immediately began moving through the shop, nose to the ground, checking corners and spaces with systematic precision. He moved behind the counter around display cases under shelves. After 2 minutes, he returned to Owen and sat looking up expectantly. What was he searching for? Person asked. Anything unusual. Anything that does not belong. If there had been a threat, a hidden device, anything out of place, he would have found it. Owen pulled a small treat from his pocket and gave it to Ash. He can also track by scent across kilometers, detect changes in air pressure that indicate weather shifts, and hear sounds I cannot. He is not a pet. He is a partner. Herson's crystals brightened. Fascinating. Your species creates tools from living things. We create partnerships, Owen corrected. There is a difference. A tool is something you use. A partner is something you trust. And you trust this creature with your life. Every day, just as he trusts me with his, hers seem to reach a decision. I will pay double the standard rate for your metals. Not because of their quality, though that is excellent, but because I want to encourage more humans to come to this station. Your species is interesting. Different? The galaxy needs different. As they finalized the transaction, a commotion erupted near the shop entrance. A group of large beings pushed their way inside, led by a Corinth even bigger than Growl. His scales were darker, almost black, and his eyes held a meanness that Owen recognized immediately. This was someone looking for trouble. This is the human everyone talks about, the Corinth said, his voice dripping with contempt. The little thing with the fluffy pet. I am Drell. I run cargo protection on this station, and I think you need to pay for protection, human. Things can happen to small beings who travel alone. Pick squeaked in fear and hid behind a display case. Herson's crystals dimmed, a sign of disapproval, but he said nothing. This was station politics, and apparently nobody interfered with Drell. Owen stood his ground. "I don't need protection, but thank you for the offer." Drell laughed and his companions laughed with him. "You don't need protection. Look at you. I could break you with one hand. And your little furry friend there. What's he going to do? Lick me to death." Ash had already moved to stand between Owen and Drell. His ears were forward, his body tense, and his eyes locked on the threat. A low growl started in his chest, deeper and more menacing than the small sound he had made with picks. Drell looked down at Ash with amusement. "Oh, it growls. How terrifying. Does it bite, too? Should I be scared?" Owen kept his voice calm and level. "You should back away. Ash does not like being threatened." "Or what? You will set your pet on me? I would like to see that." Before things could escalate further, Growl appeared in the doorway, his security badge glinting. "Drell, move along. No trouble in the commercial district." Drell glared at Growl, but backed toward the door. "This is not over, human. You and your fuzzy friend better watch yourselves. Accidents happen on the station." They left, and Owen felt the tension drain from Ash's body. The wolf had not attacked, had not even snapped, but the message had been clear. Touch Owen and face consequences. Growl looked at Owen with an expression that might have been concern. "Drell is trouble. You should avoid him." "I intend to," Owen said. "We are just here to trade and leave. For your sake, I hope you leave before he decides to make an example of you." As Owen left Herson's shop with Ash, his pockets heavier with credits and his mind heavier with concerns. He looked down at his companion. "Looks like we attracted the wrong kind of attention, boy." Ash's tail swished once, unbothered. In the wolf's world, there were always bigger predators looking for a fight. The key was knowing when to fight back and when to walk away. For now, walking away seemed wisest, but Owen knew that Drill was not the type to let things go. Sooner or later, there would be a confrontation. Owen just hoped that when it came, he and Ash would be ready. Sirens screamed through Crossroads Station at 300 hours by Galactic Standard Time. Owen had been asleep in the small berth he had rented, with Ash curled up on the floor beside the bed. Both of them snapped awake instantly, years of survival instincts overriding the confusion of being woken from deep sleep. The lights in the room flashed red and a mechanical voice repeated the same message over and over through the translation system. Hull breach. Multiple hull breaches. All residents proceed to emergency shelters. This is not a drill. Hull breach. Multiple hull breaches. Owen rolled out of bed already pulling on his boots and jacket. His heart hammered, but his hands stayed steady. Ash was on his feet, ears swiveling toward the door, picking up sounds that Owen could not hear yet. Screams, running footsteps, the distinctive thump of explosive decompression somewhere far off. "Pirates," Owen muttered, grabbing his pack and checking his pistol. It had to be pirates. The door to his berth slid open, and chaos greeted him. The corridor was packed with panicking beings. All of them rushing toward the emergency shelters that sat in the station's protected core. Some were carrying children. Others were dragging luggage. All of them were terrified. Owen stepped into the flow of traffic. Ash pressed close to his side and let the crowd carry them forward. Then he heard it. Weapons fire. Not the clean energy bursts of station security, but the crackling discharge of Militara plasma rifles and screaming. Not the general panic screaming of evacuation, but the specific terror of people dying. The crowd stumbled to a halt as more people tried to push forward while others tried to turn back. Owen pulled Ash to the side, pressing against the wall to avoid being trampled. Through a viewport, he could see small attack ships attached to the station's hull like parasites, cutting their way inside. Growl's voice came through the station-wide communication system, strained but steady. All security personnel to breach points. Civilians, evacuate immediately. We have hostile borders. Repeat, hostile borders. The crowd surged again, driven by fresh panic. Owen fought against the flow, moving toward a side corridor that led toward the commercial district. Several beings shouted at him, asking where he was going, telling him he was moving in the wrong direction. He ignored them. Something in his gut told him that people were trapped, people who could not reach the shelters in time. Ash sensed his decision and moved with him without hesitation. They navigated through the station's corridors, following the sound of weapons fire. Owen's mind catalogued everything he saw. Emergency bulkheads were sealed in some sections but not others. Lighting was flickering. Gravity felt slightly off, suggesting damage to the station systems. They rounded a corner and found the first body. A Volith security officer, his crystalline body shattered by plasma fire. Owen checked for life signs, found none, and took the officer's weapon. It was designed for hands larger than his, but he could make it work. Voices ahead, not translated, which meant his universal translator was damaged, or these beings were not using the common communication protocols. Owen recognized the tone, though, aggressive, confident, victorious. These were not desperate refugees or freedom fighters. These were predators enjoying the hunt. He moved forward carefully, using cover with Ash low and silent beside him. Around the next corner, the commercial district opened up and Owen saw what he had feared. A group of pirates, 5 of them, all different species, but all heavily armed, had cornered a cluster of civilians against a sealed emergency door. The civilians were mostly Benturi, small and defenseless, including several children. Pix was among them, trying to shield 3 young ones behind her body. One of the pirates, a massive being covered in thick armor, was laughing as he aimed his weapon at the group. He was not shooting yet. He was enjoying their fear. The translator in Owen's ear caught enough of their language to understand the threats. They wanted access codes. They wanted to know where valuables were stored. And they were willing to kill until someone talked. Owen's hand tightened on the stolen plasma rifle. He had never killed before. Had hunted animals on Earth, yes, but never taken a sentient life. But looking at those children at Pix desperately trying to protect them, he knew what he had to do. This was not a debate or a moral puzzle. This was survival. And in survival situations, you protected the pack. He looked down at Ash and whispered a command in a language only they shared. A mix of words and signals they had developed over years together. Hunt. Ash's eyes gleamed. His body lowered into a crouch. He understood. They had practiced this, trained for this. Even if Owen had hoped they would never need to use it, Owen stepped out into the open and fired once. The plasma bolt caught one pirate in the shoulder, spinning him around. Not a killing shot, but enough to get their attention. All 5 pirates turned toward him, and Owen saw the surprise on their faces. What was a human doing here? Why was he attacking? Did he have a death wish? Their surprise cost them precious seconds. Ash launched himself forward like a missile, covering the distance faster than any of them expected. He hit the closest pirate low, jaws clamping onto the being's leg with enough force to crush through armor and into flesh beneath. The pirate screamed and fell. Owen was already moving, using their confusion to close the distance. He fired twice more, forcing the pirates to scatter for cover. His military training from Earth's colonial defense force came back like muscle memory. Move, shoot, move again. Never stay still. Never give them a clean target. One pirate tried to line up a shot on Ash. Owen put a plasma bolt through his chest before he could fire. The being dropped and Owen felt something cold settle in his stomach. He had just killed someone. There was no time to process that feeling. 2 more pirates were still active and both of them were now focused on him with deadly intent. They opened fire and Owen dove behind a support pillar. Plasma bolts scorched the air where he had been standing. He could hear Ash still fighting. Heard the snarling and screaming that meant the wolf was keeping at least one pirate busy. Owen leaned out and fired blind just to keep pressure on them. Ash, break. The wolf released his current target and sprinted toward Owen, moving in a zigzag pattern that made him nearly impossible to hit. He reached Owen's position just as both pirates tried to rush forward. What they did not expect was for their prey to charge back. Owen came around the pillar, firing, and Ash went low again. This time targeting a different pirate. The coordination between them was perfect, practiced, instinctive. Where Owen went high, Ash went low. Where Owen forced them to look one direction, Ash attacked from another. It was not a fair fight. It was a hunt. And on Earth, humans and wolves had perfected the art of hunting together over tens of thousands of years. The fight lasted less than 3 minutes. When it ended, 5 pirates lay on the ground, 3 dead and 2 unconscious. Owen was bleeding from a graze on his arm where a plasma bolt had clipped him. Ash had a scorch mark on his shoulder, but was otherwise unharmed. The civilian stared at them in absolute silence. Pixa's voice, usually so bright and cheerful, came out as a whisper. "You saved us." Owen checked his weapon's charge and looked toward the corridor where more sounds of fighting echoed. "Get to the shelters now while you have a chance." "But you're hurt," Pig said, gesturing at his arm. "I'm fine. Go." The civilians ran and Owen watched them disappear toward safety. Then he turned to Ash, kneeling down to check the wolf for injuries. The scorch mark looked superficial, but it would need treatment later. "You all right, boy?" Ash licked Owen's face once, which Owen took as a yes. Growl's voice came through the comm system again. "Security is falling back to the command center. All able-bodied defenders, we need support at Junction 7. Repeat, Junction 7. Owen stood up. Junction 7 was between here and the shelters. If the pirates took that position, they could cut off the evacuation routes. Hundreds would be trapped. He looked down at Ash, saw the same understanding in the wolf's eyes that he felt in his own heart. "We're not done yet," Owen said quietly. They moved through the station, following the sounds of battle. Twice more they encountered pirates, and twice more they struck from surprise, using speed and coordination to overcome superior numbers and firepower. Owen fought with a cold efficiency that surprised him, and Ash fought with the focused intensity of a predator defending his territory. By the time they reached Junction 7, station security was pinned down by a larger force of pirates. Growl and 4 other officers were behind makeshift barricades, returning fire against at least 15 attackers. The security chief's scales were scorched, and one of his arms hung useless at his side. Owen assessed the situation in seconds. The pirates had superior position and superior numbers. Security could not advance without being cut down, but the pirates were focused entirely on the barricade. They were not watching their flanks. Owen keyed his stolen comm unit to the security frequency. "Growl, this is Owen. I'm on your right flank with a clear shot at their position. When I open fire, push forward." There was a pause. Then Growl's voice filled with disbelief and something that might have been hope. "Human, you should be in the shelters. Just be ready." Owen moved into position, Ash shadowing him. He took a breath, steadied his aim, and opened fire on the pirates' exposed flank. The first 3 shots dropped 2 pirates before they even knew they were being attacked. Ash charged into their formation, a gray blur of teeth and fury, creating chaos and confusion. Growl did not waste the opportunity. Security forces surged forward, and what had been a stalemate became a rout. The pirates broke and ran, and security cut them down or captured them as they fled. Within minutes, Junction 7 was secured. Growl limped over to where Owen stood, breathing hard, his weapon still raised and ready. The security chief looked at Owen, then at Ash, then back at Owen. His expression was complex, mixing shock, respect, and something like fear. "You fight like a demon," Growl said quietly. "I fight like a human," Owen corrected. "There's a difference." Around them, other security officers were staring. Word was spreading through the station's communication networks. The small human and his animal had fought back, had killed pirates, had helped secure critical positions, had saved civilians. Hicks appeared from somewhere, running toward Owen with medical supplies. "I had to come back." "You're hurt. Sit down. Let me help." Owen let her tend to his wounds while Ash sat beside him, panting, but alert. The adrenaline was starting to fade, replaced by exhaustion and the weight of what he had done. He had killed today. 3 beings were dead by his hand. That was going to haunt him. But looking at the civilians who were now safely making their way to shelters, looking at the children Pix had been protecting, Owen knew he had made the right choice. On Earth, the strong protected the weak. That was what separated civilization from chaos. Growl received a communication and his posture straightened. "The pirates are retreating. We held the station." He looked at Owen. "Thanks to you. Thanks to everyone who fought," Owen said. "I just did what needed doing." "No," Growl said firmly. "You did more. Much more. And the station will remember." As medical teams arrived to treat the wounded and damage control teams began assessing the station's systems, Owen sat with Ash and felt the weight of everything settle on his shoulders. They had won. They had survived, but something had changed. The galaxy had seen what a human could do when pushed. Had seen what a wolf could do when protecting his pack. Owen was not sure if that was a good thing or a terrible one. Time would tell. Recovery took hours. The station's emergency systems worked to restore atmosphere to breached sections. While medical teams treated hundreds of wounded, Owen had refused intensive care, settling for basic bandaging and painkillers that probably were not designed for human biology, but worked well enough. Ash received treatment from the station's veterinary specialist, a nervous being named Chorus, who kept a safe distance while scanning the wolf for injuries. Owen sat in the security center with Growl, watching monitor feeds from across the station. The pirate attack had been repelled, but at a cost. 17 dead, over 100 wounded, and significant structural damage. But it could have been worse. Much worse. "The pirates made a mistake," Growl said, reviewing tactical data. "They expected us to be soft. Easy targets. They thought overwhelming force would make us surrender." He looked at Owen. "They did not account for you." "I just did what anyone would do," Owen said, though he knew that was not true. Most of the species he had met would have run or surrendered. Fighting back against superior numbers was not a common response in the civilized galaxy. Growl pulled up security footage from the commercial district showing Owen and Ash's first engagement. He played it in slow motion, and Owen watched himself moving through the fight with a fluidity he had not been aware of at the time. Ash's attack was even more impressive in slow motion, every movement precise and devastating. "This is not normal," Growl said. "The way you fight, the way your creature fights, you move together like one being with 2 bodies. How is this possible?" Owen thought about how to explain 30,000 years of coevolution between humans and wolves. "On Earth, we call it pack tactics. Wolves hunt in groups, coordinating their attacks to bring down prey much larger than themselves. Humans learn to hunt the same way. When we started working together, we combined our strengths. Wolves have better senses and speed. Humans have better planning and endurance. Together, we became the most effective hunters on our world. And you still use these tactics, even in space, even with modern weapons. Tactics don't change just because the tools do." Owen said, "A good ambush is a good ambush. Whether you're using spears or plasma rifles, coordination still wins fights. Trust still matters." These are lessons millions of years of evolution taught us. We don't forget them just because we have technology now. Growl was quiet for a moment. Then he pulled up another feed. This one showing the station's outer docking arms. The pirates did not all flee. Their leader, a Koran named Grow, is still docked on Arm 17. He sent a message demanding we provide him safe passage or he will detonate explosive charges his team planted during the attack. Owen leaned forward, studying the image. Grow was massive, even for a Koran, easily 9 foot tall with black scales that looked like armor plating. He stood on the boarding ramp of his ship, surrounded by 7 remaining crew members. All of them were heavily armed and looked like hardened fighters. How long until reinforcements arrive? Owen asked. 6 hours at best. Grow knows this. He is buying time to escape. And if you refuse his demands, he destroys 3 docking arms and kills everyone in those sections. At least 200 civilians are trapped there. Owen watched the feed. Grow was not panicking or desperate. He was calm, confident, in control. This was someone who had done this before, who knew exactly how to exploit fear and uncertainty. Owen recognized the type. Bullies existed on every world in every species. The only language they understood was strength. What if I went? Owen said quietly. Growl turned to stare at him. You alone? Not alone. With Ash. Owen gestured at the wolf who had been resting nearby, but now raised his head at his name. Grow wants safe passage. Give it to him. But let me escort him to his ship. If I can get close enough, I can neutralize the threat without triggering his explosives. That is suicide. He will kill you the moment you get within range. Maybe. Or maybe he'll underestimate me the way everyone else has. Owen met Growl's eyes. You said yourself. The pirates made a mistake thinking you were soft. Grow is making the same mistake with me. Let me use that. Growl's claws tapped against the console, a sign of agitation. Why would you do this? You have already done more than anyone could ask. You could leave right now. Take your ship and go. Owen thought about Pix, about the children she had been protecting, about all the beings on this station who had welcomed him despite their initial mockery. He thought about what his father had taught him in those mountains so long ago. You protect the pack always, even when it costs you, because it's the right thing to do, Owen said simply. 20 minutes later, Owen stood in the corridor leading to docking Arms 17, wearing borrowed body armor that fit poorly and carrying a pistol that was running low on charge. Ash walked beside him, the scorch mark on his shoulder covered by the protective vest Owen had made for him. Both of them looked tired, battered, and small compared to what waited ahead. Grow's voice boomed through the corridor speakers. I see movement. Send one person unarmed or I start detonating charges. Owen Kia is calm. This is Owen Reeves. I'm coming to escort you to your ship. I'm armed and I'm not surrendering my weapon. But I'm alone. Just me and my companion. Let's talk this through. There was a pause, then laughter. The human. I heard about you. You killed some of my crew. That was expensive. I think I will kill you slowly for that. You can try, Owen said, and started walking forward. The corridor opened into the docking arm, and Owen saw Grow's crew spread out in a defensive formation. Grow himself stood in the center, a massive weapon held casually in one hand, his eyes fixed on Owen with predatory interest. You are the one they talk about, the one who fights like a demon. Grow laughed again. You are tiny, a child, and your pet is pathetic. This is what the station fears. Owen stopped about 20 feet away, his hand resting on his weapon, but not drawing it. I'm here to make sure you leave. That's all. Take your ship and go. No more killing or what? You will stop me. Grow stepped forward and his crew raised their weapons. I have 7 trained fighters. You have a dog. Do the math, human. Wolves aren't dogs, Owen said calmly. And humans aren't prey. That's the math you should be worried about. Grow moved fast for his size, covering the distance between them in 3 strides. His hand shot out to grab Owen by the throat, confident in his superior strength and reach. But Owen had fought Earth predators that were faster and stronger than Grow. He dropped under the grab, rolled forward, and came up inside Grow's guard. The knife he drew from his boot was simple Earth steel. Nothing fancy, but it was sharp, and Owen knew exactly where to put it. He drove it into the gap between Grow's armor plates into the soft tissue of the leg. Not a killing blow, but enough to drop the giant to one knee. Ash moved simultaneously, launching himself at the nearest crew member. The pirate tried to bring his weapon around, but Ash was too fast, jaws clamping onto the arm and wrenching the weapon away. Other crew members opened fire, but Owen was already moving again, using Grow's body as cover. What followed was not a clean fight or a heroic battle. It was brutal, desperate, and ugly. Owen fought with every dirty trick he had learned, every survival skill that Earth had taught him. He used his size to stay mobile, used his endurance to outlast opponents who tired quickly, and used his mind to turn their strength against them. Ash fought like the apex predator he was, all teeth and speed and instinct. Together, they moved through Growl's crew like a storm. One by one, the pirates fell, some unconscious, some wounded. All of them removed from the fight. Grow managed to stand despite his injured leg. Roaring in rage and pain. He grabbed a plasma rifle from one of his fallen crew and aimed it at Owen. Die, human. Owen dove for cover, but he was too slow. The plasma bolt caught him in the side, burning through armor and into flesh. Pain exploded through his body and he went down hard. His vision blurred and he tasted blood in his mouth. Through the haze, he saw Growl advancing. Weapon raised for a killing shot. This was it. He had pushed too far, fought too hard, and now it was going to end. Then Ash appeared between them. The wolf stood over Owen's fallen body, and the sound that came from him was nothing like the growls Owen had heard before. This was deeper, more primal, a sound that carried the weight of millennia of evolution. It was the sound that ancient humans had heard in the darkness outside their caves, the sound that meant a predator was near. Growl hesitated. For the first time, he looked uncertain. He raised his weapon toward Ash, but the wolf was already moving, faster than thought, faster than reaction. Ash hit Grow like a missile. The impact drove the massive Corrin backward into the wall, and his weapon clattered away. What happened next? Owen only saw in fragments. His consciousness was fading, shock setting in from the plasma wound. But he saw Ash standing over the fallen Grow, jaws at the pirate leader's throat, waiting. Not killing, not yet, just waiting. Growl's voice came through Owen's calm, distant and echoing. Owen, respond. We're coming. Owen tried to speak, but only managed to whisper. Ash, stand down. Stand down, boy. The wolf's head turned toward Owen's voice. His jaws released Grow's throat, and he padded over to where Owen lay, whining softly. Owen managed to raise one hand and touch Ash's head. Good boy, he whispered. Good boy. Then darkness took him. When Owen woke, he was in the medical bay. His side hurt like fire, but in a way that suggested treatment and medication rather than active injury. Dr. Venice stood nearby, reviewing data on a medical screen. You are awake, she said, her crystalline voice showing relief. That is good. Your healing factor is remarkable. The wound should have killed you, but you are already stabilizing. Ash Owen managed to ask, your wolf is fine. He is outside causing distress among the medical staff who are afraid to walk past him. She paused. He has not left the door to your room since you were brought in. He attacked 2 orderlies who tried to move him. We decided it was easier to let him stay. Owen tried to sit up and immediately regretted it. Growl in custody, wounded but alive. His crew surrendered after they saw what your wolf did to him. Dr. Venice moved closer. Owen, I have been studying the footage from your fight. I have been studying your biology. I have been trying to understand how you survived. And I think I finally do. How's that? You were not trying to win. You were trying to survive. There is a difference. She pulled up footage from the fight. Every species I know when they fight to demonstrate dominance or to kill efficiently. You fought to not die. Every move you made, every risk you took was calculated for maximum survival. And your wolf did the same. You both prioritized survival over victory, which paradoxically led to victory. Owen thought about that. On Earth, surviving is winning. Everything else is secondary. That, Dr. Venice said, is the difference between a Death World species and the rest of the galaxy. The door opened and Ash bounded in. Ignoring the protests of the medical staff, he went straight to Owen's bedside, tail wagging, whining with relief. Owen buried his hand in the wolf's fur and felt tears he had been holding back finally come. They had survived against all odds, against superior force. They had survived, and in doing so, they had proven something important. Not that humans were unbeatable, or that Earth creatures were unstoppable, but that beings from a death world carried something precious inside them. The will to keep fighting, the refusal to give up, the understanding that survival was not just about strength or speed or weapons. It was about heart, about loyalty, about choosing to stand when falling would be easier. It was about Peck. And nothing in the galaxy was stronger than that. 3 days passed before Owen was cleared to leave the medical bay. Dr. Venice wanted him to stay longer, concerned about internal damage that her equipment could not fully understand. But Owen insisted he was fine. The pain had faded to a dull ache, and his body felt stronger each day. Human healing, she said, was far more robust than galactic medical science had anticipated. Ash had barely left his side during the recovery. The wolf slept on the floor beside Owen's bed, ate meals that Pix brought from the station's food courts, and growled at anyone who approached too quickly. The medical staff learned to announce themselves before entering, and several admitted they now understood why Owen called Ash a companion rather than a pet. There was intelligence in those amber eyes and loyalty that went beyond simple training. When Owen finally walked out of medical, leaning slightly on a cane that Growl had provided, he found a crowd waiting. Not a hostile crowd or a mocking one, but something entirely different. Beings of a dozen species lined the corridor, and as Owen appeared, they began to clap. Or whatever their species equivalent was. Crystalline beings chimed. Insectoids clicked mandibles. Corans thumped their tails against the floor. Pix pushed through the crowd, her eyes bright with emotion. You're a hero. Everyone knows what you did. You saved us. Owen felt uncomfortable with the attention. I just did what needed doing. You fought pirates. You took down Grow. You saved 200 people. Pix grabbed his hand with 2 of her 4 arms. The council wants to meet you. And there are messages. So many messages. Other humans heard what happened and they're coming to the station. And the news networks across the galaxy are broadcasting the security footage. That last part made Owen's stomach sink. Broadcasting what footage? Growl appeared from the crowd, moving people aside with his bulk. Come, we need to talk privately. In Growl's office, away from the crowds, the security chief pulled up screens showing news broadcasts from across the galaxy. Every one of them featured the same thing. Footage of Owen and Ash fighting the pirates, the commercial district fight, the defense of Junction 7, the final confrontation with Grow. Someone had edited it all together into what looked like an action entertainment program, complete with dramatic music and slow-motion replays. This has been playing on major networks for 2 days, Growl explained. The entire galaxy is watching. Everyone wants to know about humans, about Earth, about death worlds. Your species has gone from unknown to famous in less than a week. Owen watched himself on screen, saw ash moving like liquid death, and felt a knot of worry tighten in his chest. This is going to cause problems. Perhaps it will cause opportunities. Growl switched to a different screen showing incoming messages, hundreds of them. Thousands from governments, corporations, military organizations, research institutions, and individuals, all wanting the same things. Information about humans, trade agreements, defense contracts, cultural exchanges. One message caught Owen's attention. It was from Earth's colonial administration marked urgent. Growl played it and a woman's face appeared on screen. She was in her 50s, gray hair pulled back, wearing the uniform of Earth's diplomatic corps. Mr. Reeves, this is Ambassador Patricia Cole from Earth's First Contact Office. We've been monitoring the situation at Crossroads Station. What you've accomplished is extraordinary, but it's also accelerated our contact timeline by several years. We're dispatching a diplomatic vessel to your location. Estimated arrival in 4 days. Until then, you're our de facto representative to the galactic community. Please exercise appropriate judgment. Earth is watching, and apparently so is everyone else. The message ended, and Owen sat down heavily in a chair, ignoring the protest from his healing wound. Ash pressed against his leg, sensing his distress. I'm just a cargo pilot, Owen said quietly. I'm not a diplomat. I'm not a soldier. I just wanted to trade some metals and move on. But you became more, Growl said. Whether you wanted to or not. The question now is what you do with that. Over the next 2 days, Owen reluctantly accepted meetings with various station officials and representatives from other species. Each conversation was different, but they all circled around the same core questions. A military delegation from the Volith Collective wanted to know about human combat doctrine. They had studied the footage frame by frame and concluded that human tactics were unlike anything in their databases. Owen tried to explain that he had simply fought the way Earth had taught him, using terrain and timing and never giving up. They did not seem satisfied with that answer, as if expecting some secret weapon or advanced technology. A research team led by Dr. Venice wanted permission to visit Earth and study its ecosystem. We need to understand how a world that hostile produces beings capable of what you demonstrated, she explained. Not just physically, but mentally. Your resilience is remarkable. Your pain tolerance is beyond our medical models. And your bond with your wolf suggests emotional capacities we did not expect. Owen thought about that. Earth is harsh. Yes, but it's also beautiful. Humans didn't survive by being the strongest or fastest. We survived by caring about each other, by forming groups, by protecting those who couldn't protect themselves. Ash and I were not special. We're just an example of what happens when two species decide to face the world together. Pix and several other Benturi representatives asked if humans would consider an alliance. Their species was small, peaceful, and frequently targeted by larger, more aggressive species. You showed that size doesn't determine strength, Pix said. You showed that the strong can protect the weak without exploiting them. That's rare in the galaxy. That's valuable. Owen promised to carry their message to Earth's government, though he was careful not to make commitments he could not keep. The most interesting meeting came from an unexpected source. Drell, the Koran, who had threatened Owen days earlier, appeared at his door looking subdued and respectful. His scales were muted, a sign of shame in his species. I came to apologize, Drell said without preamble. I mocked you. Threatened you. I thought you were weak because you were small. I was wrong. Apology accepted, Owen said simply. May I ask you something? Drill hesitated. How did you know you could win against the pirates? Against Grow? You were outnumbered, outgunned. Any rational calculation said you should have died. Why did you fight? Owen thought about all the times he had faced danger on Earth. Bears in the wilderness, storms at sea, injuries in the middle of nowhere with no help coming. He thought about what his father had taught him, what Ash had shown him, what a million years of human evolution had proven. I didn't know I could win, Owen admitted. I just knew I couldn't live with myself if I didn't try. On Earth, we have a saying. It's not the size of the dog in the fight. It's the size of the fight in the dog. Humans don't give up ever, even when we should. Especially when we should. That's what makes us dangerous. Not our strength or our weapons, our refusal to quit. Drell nodded slowly. That is a death world lesson. Most species, we learn when to surrender, when to retreat, when to accept defeat. You never learned that. Oh, we learned it, Owen said. We just chose to ignore it. The fourth day arrived, and with it came the diplomatic vessel from Earth. It was a sleek ship, modern compared to Owen's battered freighter, and it brought with it a full delegation, including Ambassador Cole, military advisors, cultural specialists, and a team of scientists eager to study the galaxy. Owen met them at the docking bay with Ash at his side and Growl accompanying them as station liaison. Cole was a stern woman with sharp eyes that missed nothing. She looked at Owen, then at Ash, then at the crowds of aliens watching from a distance. You've made quite an impression, she said dryly. I didn't mean to. Nevertheless, you have, which means we need to manage this carefully, she gestured toward the station. Every major species in this sector has sent representatives to meet with us. They want trade agreements, defense pacts, cultural exchanges. Some want to hire human mercenaries. Others want to study our biology. A few want to warn us away from their territories. What do you need from me? Owen asked. The truth. What happened here? Not the propaganda version on the news, but the real story. Cole's expression softened slightly. And whether you think humanity is ready for this galaxy. Over the next several hours, Owen told her everything. The mockery when he first arrived. The curiosity from beings like Willix and Dr. Venice. The threats from Drell. The pirate attack and his decision to fight. The confrontation with Grow. He did not try to make himself sound heroic or special. He just told it as it happened. Cole listened without interrupting, taking notes on a data pad. When Owen finished, she was quiet for a long moment. You did well, she finally said. Better than we could have hoped for in a first contact situation. You showed humanity's strengths without hiding our capacity for violence. You made allies without making promises we can't keep. And you did it while staying true to who you are. She looked down at Ash. And your companion there has single-handedly changed how the galaxy views Earth animals. We've already received 17 requests for information about domestication programs. Ash isn't domesticated. Owen said he's a partner. I know, but the galaxy doesn't understand that distinction yet. They will though. Thanks to you, they'll learn. Cole stood. Earth's government wants to offer you a position. Official liaison to Crossroads Station. You'd work with me and my team, helping facilitate introductions and cultural exchange. You'd be paid well and have official diplomatic protection. Owen looked at Ash. Then out at the station, where beings from across the galaxy now walked without fear, where children played in corridors that had been battlegrounds, where species that had never worked together were forming new alliances. Can I think about it? He asked. Of course. Take your time. Cole handed him a calm device. Reach out when you've decided. In the meantime, there's someone who wants to meet you. She led him to a conference room where a holographic projection showed a Volnath elder. Her crystalline structure showing the intricate patterns of great age. I am Administrator of Crossroads Station. I wanted to thank you personally for what you did. I was just protecting people, Owen said. Yes, exactly. Failer's image leaned forward. You did not have to. You could have hidden, could have fled, could have saved yourself. Instead, you chose to stand between danger and innocents who were not even your species. That is the mark of true civilization. Not technology or strength, but the willingness to protect those who cannot protect themselves. On Earth, we call that being part of a pack, Owen said. Then perhaps the galaxy needs to learn pack mentality, Flora replied. I am offering you permanent docking rights at this station free of charge for as long as you wish. And I am hoping you will choose to stay. Crossroads needs beings like you. Beings who understand that strength means more than size or weapons. Owen felt Ash lean against his leg, warm and solid and real. He thought about the dust runner sitting in its dock, ready to fly. He thought about all the worlds he had not yet seen, all the space he had not yet explored. But he also thought about Pix and her children. About Dr. Venice eager to learn, about Growl, who had gone from mockery to respect, about all the beings on this station who had seen something in him and Ash that changed their understanding of what strength meant. I'll stay for a while, Owen said. See how it goes. Failure's crystalline structure brightened with what might have been a smile. That is all anyone can ask. That night, Owen sat in his small berth with Ash beside him, looking out at the stars through a viewport. The station hummed around them, alive with voices and activity and hope. Somewhere out there, Earth waited, and somewhere else the rest of the galaxy was learning that size did not matter, that appearance could deceive, and that the most dangerous beings were often the ones who chose loyalty over survival. Owen scratched Ash behind the ears and felt the wolf's tail thump against the floor. We did good, boy. Changed some minds, made some friends, survived another day. Ash's amber eyes met his, full of understanding and trust. Tomorrow, Owen said, we start figuring out what comes next. But tonight, we rest. We've earned it. Outside the viewport, stars wheeled in their ancient dance, and somewhere among them, other humans were preparing to join the galaxy. But Owen Reeves, cargo pilot and reluctant hero, had shown them the way, not through conquest or domination, but through courage, loyalty, and the simple act of standing up when it mattered most. The galaxy was learning what Earth had always known. That true strength came from the heart. And nothing in the universe was more powerful than that. 6 months had passed since the pirate attack, and Crossroads Station had transformed from a simple trading hub into something more significant. It had become a bridge between humanity and the wider galaxy. A place where species came not just to trade goods, but to trade ideas. And at the center of it all, whether he wanted to be or not, was Owen Reeves and his wolf. The berth Owen had rented that first day had been replaced by proper quarters in the station's residential district. Not fancy by any means, but comfortable, large enough for him and Ash to live without feeling cramped, with a viewport that showed the stars and enough space for Ash to pace when the wolf got restless. Owen had accepted the liaison position that Ambassador Cole offered, though he made it clear he was not a politician and never would be. What he was good at, he discovered, was being himself, being honest, being the kind of person who saw problems and fixed them without needing committees or approval chains. The galaxy, it turned out, appreciated that directness. On this particular morning, Owen woke to find Ash already awake and staring at the door. A moment later, someone knocked, confirming what the wolf's senses had already detected. Owen pulled on clothes and opened the door to find Pick standing there, practically vibrating with excitement. Owen, you have to come. The delegates from the COR and home world just arrived, and they specifically asked to meet you and Ash. Owen suppressed a sigh. These meetings had become routine, though each one brought its own challenges. Some species wanted to study him like a lab specimen. Others wanted to hire him as a mercenary. A few had come seeking alliances or trade agreements, and some, like apparently these Corans, came looking for something else entirely. The meeting room in the diplomatic section was larger than Owen thought necessary, with a ceiling that stretched up 3 stories to accommodate species of various sizes. The Corran delegation consisted of 5 individuals led by a female named Chess, whose scales held a deep green color that indicated high rank in her society. Growl was present as well, standing off to one side in his security uniform. Over the past months, he and Owen had developed a cautious friendship built on mutual respect. Growl had admitted during one late-night conversation over drinks that Owen probably should not have been able to process that Owen's arrival had fundamentally changed his understanding of strength. Chess studied Owen with the same intensity that Growl had shown during their first meeting, but without the dismissiveness. Her eyes moved to Ash, who sat calmly beside Owen's chair, and something like appreciation crossed her reptilian features. "You are smaller than I expected," Chess said. "Given what the reports describe." "I get that a lot," Owen replied. "Size is relative." Indeed, Chess settled into a chair designed for her species' bulk. "I came to apologize on behalf of my people. The pirates who attacked this station, including Grow, were Corran. Their actions brought shame to our species. More importantly, they demonstrated a weakness in our culture that we are working to address." Owen had not expected that. "What kind of weakness?" "We relied on size and strength for so long that we forgot other forms of power existed. We became bullies in your language, taking what we wanted because we could, justifying it because we were bigger." Chess looked at Growl. "Even our security forces, our police, our military, they operated from the assumption that might made right. And then you showed us something different." "I just defended people who needed defending." "Exactly. You did not fight to dominate. You fought to protect. You did not seek glory or conquest. You sought survival for yourself and others." Chess pulled up a hollow screen showing footage that Owen had seen too many times. Himself and Ash fighting the pirates, moving with coordination and purpose. "We have studied this extensively. Do you know what our military analysts concluded?" Owen shook his head. "That you fight like you have already lost. Every move you make, every tactic you employ assumes you are at a disadvantage. You use terrain because you cannot rely on strength. You use speed because you cannot rely on armor. You use your companion because you cannot fight alone. And yet by assuming you are weak, you become strong." Chess leaned forward. "This is revolutionary for us. We are teaching this to our young now. Not to rely solely on size, but to think, to adapt, to protect rather than dominate." Owen felt Ash press against his leg. The wolf's warm weight, a reminder of why he fought the way he did. "On Earth, we call it survival instinct. You do whatever it takes to make it through the day. And you remember that surviving alone is harder than surviving together." The meeting continued for another hour, with Chess asking detailed questions about human culture, Earth's history, and Owen's personal philosophy. By the end, the Corrans had offered a formal alliance with Earth, pending approval from both governments. It was one of 17 such offers that had come through Crossroads Station in recent months. After the Corrans left, Dr. Venice appeared as if she had been waiting for them to finish. The Volnath scientist had become a regular presence in Owen's life, always eager to discuss Earth biology or observe Ash or ask questions that made Owen think about things he had always taken for granted. "I have news," she said, her crystalline voice chiming with excitement. "The expedition to Earth has been approved. We leave in 2 weeks. 20 scientists from 12 species, all wanting to study your home world. And you are invited to join us to come home." Owen had known this was coming, but hearing it still hit differently. Home. He had been away from Earth for almost a year now, traveling between colonies and stations, and part of him ached to see forests and oceans and skies that were not filtered through viewports. "What exactly are you planning to study?" Owen asked cautiously. "Everything. The ecosystem that produced your species, the predators you coexisted with, the weather systems that shaped your evolution, but also your cultures, your cities, your relationship with your world. Venice gestured toward Ash, and especially your domestication programs. The fact that you formed partnerships with other predators is unprecedented. We need to understand how and why. Ash isn't domesticated, Owen said for what felt like the 1000th time. He's family. Yes, but how did that happen? How did ancient humans convince ancient wolves to hunt with them instead of competing? That question has implications far beyond Earth. If different species can form that kind of bond, truly cooperative rather than exploitative, it changes everything we understand about interspecies relationships. Owen thought about that. In the month since the pirate attack, he had seen the beginning of something new on Crossroads Station. Species that had previously only tolerated each other were forming partnerships. Binti engineers were working with Volith scientists. Koran security forces were training with humans in new tactics that emphasized protection over domination. Small changes maybe, but significant ones. All right, Owen said. I'll go, but I'm bringing Ash and you need to be prepared. Earth isn't going to be easy for your team. It's beautiful, but it's also dangerous. Really dangerous. We know. That is why we want you as our guide. The 2 weeks passed quickly, filled with preparations and briefings and more meetings than Owen could count. Ambassador Cole assigned him an official title, Special Advisor for Earth Relations, which came with a salary that made Owen laugh at its size and responsibilities that he was still figuring out. The expedition ship was called Curiosity, which Owen appreciated for its directness. It was designed for scientific research with labs and observation decks and crew quarters for the diverse team. Owen and Ash were given a cabin near the common areas, though the wolf's presence caused some nervousness among crew members who had only seen him through recordings. The journey to Earth took 3 weeks, during which Owen gave daily presentations about his home world. He talked about continents and oceans, mountains and deserts, the variety of climates and ecosystems. He showed them images of cities and wilderness, technology and nature existing side by side. And he warned them repeatedly that Earth was not like their home worlds. Everything on Earth is competing for survival, he explained during one presentation. The plants, the animals, the microorganisms, everything. It created an environment where only the toughest, smartest, and most adaptable survived. That includes humans. We're not special because we're strong. We're special because we refuse to give up. When Earth finally appeared on the view screens, a blue and white marble hanging in space, Owen felt emotion well up in his chest. Home. After so long away, seeing it filled him with feelings he could not quite name. Beside him, Ash winded softly, as if sensing Owen's emotional state. The expedition landed at a research facility in the Pacific Northwest, the same region where Owen had grown up. Walking down the landing ramp and feeling Earth's gravity, breathing Earth's air, seeing Earth's sun in a natural sky, all of it hit Owen harder than expected. Ash bounded down the ramp and immediately started sniffing everything, reacquainting himself with a world he had left as a young wolf. Dr. Venice was the first off the ship after Owen, and she stopped dead when she stepped onto Earth's surface. The gravity, she said, her voice strained. It is so strong. This is normal for us, Owen said. But yeah, Earth's gravity is higher than most worlds. Your team should take it easy for the first few days while you adapt. The expedition spent a month on Earth, and every day brought new revelations for the alien scientists. They were amazed by Earth's biodiversity, horrified by its predators, confused by its weather patterns, and absolutely fascinated by humanity's relationship with the planet. Owen took them to forests where bears roamed and explained how humans had learned to coexist with creatures that could kill them. He took them to the ocean and showed them sharks and whales, predators and giants that made the scientists retreat in fear. He took them to cities and showed them how humanity had built civilization without destroying the wilderness entirely. How parks and nature preserves existed alongside skyscrapers and industries. But the moment that affected the expedition, most came when Owen took them to a wolf sanctuary. There they saw not just Ash, but dozens of wolves, packs moving together, communicating with body language and vocalizations, demonstrating the social structure that had first attracted ancient humans. A young handler, a woman named Rita, who had been working with wolves for 15 years, explained the domestication process. It wasn't just humans choosing wolves, she said. It was wolves choosing us too. The friendliest wolves, the ones who could tolerate being near humans, they got access to our food, our protection, our companionship. Over thousands of generations, we shaped each other. Humans became better hunters because of wolves. Wolves became better survivors because of humans. We evolved together. Dr. Venice watched the wolves playing with handlers. Saw the obvious affection between species, and her crystalline structure brightened with understanding. It was not domination. It was partnership, mutual benefit, mutual trust. That's what I've been trying to tell you, Owen said with a smile. The expedition published their findings across the galaxy, and the response was immediate and overwhelming.
Earth was classified not just as a death world, but as a miracle world, a place so harsh that it forced its inhabitants to become strong, yet so diverse that it taught them cooperation and adaptability. The images of wolves and humans together became iconic, symbols of what was possible when species chose partnership over competition. Owen returned to Crossroads Station after the expedition. But something had changed. He was no longer just a cargo pilot who got caught up in extraordinary circumstances. He was a symbol, a bridge between worlds, an example of what humanity could offer the galaxy. More humans began arriving at the station, bringing with them their own skills and perspectives, engineers and doctors, artists and teachers, soldiers and scientists. Each one adding to the growing human presence in galactic society, and many of them brought companions, dogs and cats, horses and birds, even reptiles and fish. The galaxy watched in amazement as humans formed bonds with dozens of different species. Each relationship unique but built on the same foundation of trust and mutual benefit. Pix's people, the Bent Yuri, were the first to officially request human assistance in establishing their own companion animal programs. "We are small," Pix explained during the formal request. "We have always been prey for larger species, but watching you with Ash, seeing how you protect each other, we realize we do not have to be prey. We can be pack." Owen helped design the program, working with Earth biologists to identify species that might bond well with the Bent Yuri. Within months, the first Bent Yuri handlers were training with dogs specially bred for smaller companions, and the results were remarkable. The Bent Yuri became more confident, more secure, and other species began treating them with more respect. The transformation spread. Volith scientists began studying Earth philosophy and psychology, trying to understand the mental resilience the death world living created. Koran warriors began training in human martial arts, learning that technique could overcome size. Dozens of species began re-examining their own relationships with animals on their home worlds, looking for partnership opportunities they had never considered. One evening, almost a year after that first day, Owen had arrived at Crossroads Station. He sat in his quarters with Ash and looked at everything that had changed. The small human who had been mocked was now respected. The fuzzy animal that had been dismissed was now understood, and Earth, the death world that should have killed humanity, was now seen as the source of their greatest strength. Growl stopped by, as he often did, bringing food from the station's restaurants and ready to talk about the day. They had developed a tradition of these casual meals. Two beings from very different worlds finding common ground. "I have been thinking," Growl said as they ate, "about that first day you arrived. How I dismissed you, how we all did." "I remember," Owen said. "I want you to know I am grateful you proved me wrong. You changed this station, changed how we see strength, how we see cooperation, how we see each other." Growl looked at Ash, who was gnawing on a bone that Pix had brought earlier, "and I am grateful to him for showing us that predators can be protectors, that danger and love are not opposites." Owen reached down to scratch Ash's ears, and the wolf looked up at him with those intelligent amber eyes. Ash didn't change. The galaxy just finally saw what was always there. Loyalty, trust, the willingness to stand beside someone even when it is dangerous. That is what pack means. That is what Earth taught us. And I guess that is what the galaxy needed to learn. They sat in comfortable silence and Owen thought about everything that had led to this moment. A chance encounter at a trading station. A pirate attack that forced him to reveal what humans were capable of. A single decision to fight rather than flee. All of it had cascaded into something larger than he ever imagined. Crossroads Station continued to spin in the void. A meeting place for dozens of species. A symbol of what cooperation could achieve. And somewhere on that station in quarters that smelled like Earth and sounded like home, a human and a wolf rested together after another day of showing the galaxy what true strength looked like. Not the strength of size or weapons or domination, but the strength of heart, the strength of loyalty, the strength of pack. And in the vast darkness between stars as humanity took its first real steps into the galactic community, that lesson spread from world to world, from species to species. The understanding grew that the small could be mighty, that the gentle could be fierce, that the most dangerous beings in the universe were those who fought not for conquest but for connection. Earth had entered the galaxy not with a bang but with a bond. A human and a wolf standing together, refusing to give up. And in that simple act of partnership, they had changed everything. The galaxy would never underestimate a human again or their companions or the world that had forged them both in the crucible of survival and taught them that the only way to truly win was to never fight alone. Owen closed his eyes, Ash's warmth beside him, and smiled. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new questions, new opportunities to build bridges between worlds. But tonight they rested, packed together as they always had been, as they always would be. And somewhere in the darkness, Earth hung in space, blue and beautiful and deadly and perfect. A death world that had given birth to survivors. A harsh mother that had taught her children the most important lesson of all. That love and loyalty were not weaknesses. They were the strongest forces in the universe. And nothing in all the galaxy could stand against.